In the opening scene, set in the year 1995, a woman named Margaret White is screaming in pain. We see the upstairs floor as Margaret is crying out to God in agony. We see a puddle of water that has splattered a Bible. Margaret is writhing on the bed in agony, thinking she has been afflicted with a cancer, and begs for God's mercy as she is taken. Her body contorts a few times as she screams, and she looks up waiting to die. But she doesn't. She realizes she is still alive and there is something underneath her nightdress. She looks between her legs and finds a baby. She had been pregnant and didn't know it. Margaret nods. It's a test, and reaches for scissors, ready to slay her newborn daughter. She almost stabs the baby, when something stops her at the last second. She puts the scissors down and cradles her newborn daughter. Cut to the present day. Carrie White, now age 17, is a meek, shy young girl at her high school who is always in her corner. After gym class, Carrie takes a shower as she notices blood. She immediately races to the girls for help, not understanding what is going on. The girls, led by Chris, an all-time bully, make a mockery of Carrie. Chris even films the incident. Even Sue, Chris's friend, joins in with the chanting and taunting but stops halfway through, ashamed of what she is doing. The gym teacher, Ms. Desjardins, overhears them. While Carrie is panicking, we see a little flow of energy as items are slightly moving, but Ms. Desjardins calms her down. Carrie and Ms. Desjardins are taken to the principal's office to explain what has happened. The principal instructs Ms. Desjardins to discipline the girls involved in the incident. They both informed Carrie that they had called her mother to arrange for her pickup. Carrie is shocked to hear this, knowing how extreme her mother can be. Carrie starts hyperventilating and a nearby water cooler shatters. Margaret arrives to collect Carrie, who then expresses remorse to her mother for the inconvenience of having to come to school. Carrie and Margaret had engaged in a dispute, during which Carrie adamantly refused to exit the car. Carrie sees a boy on his bicycle. He taunts her by referring to her as Crazy Carrie. Carrie causes the boy to lose balance and fall off his bike, leading him to flee in fear. Inside the house, Carrie finds her mother banging her head on the wall. Carrie tells her to stop and just talk to her. Margaret, however, is more concerned with praying for forgiveness and creates her Bible verses. Margaret knocks her in the head with a Bible. Margaret opens the prayer closet and tells Carrie to get in. Carrie refuses, so her mother throws her in. Carrie screams, and then suddenly a crack is formed through the middle of the door. Meanwhile, Sue and her boyfriend, Tommy Ross, are getting down with it. They get dressed, and Sue talks about her guilt about what happened to Carrie and how she initially helped. In another scene, Chris the bully is unrepentant about what she has done, and on a whim, decides to upload the video to YouTube, humiliating Carrie even further. Back at home, Margaret eventually opens the closet and finds Carrie sleeping. She wakes her up and Margaret becomes a loving mother again. The next day, Ms. Desjardins punishes the girls that took part in mocking Carrie, telling them to do suicide sprints after school for a week. Anyone who refuses the punishment is suspended and cannot go to prom. After a while, Chris calls bullshit on the whole punishment. So Ms. Desjardins suspends her and revokes her prom privileges. Meanwhile, everyone snickers at Carrie, having seen the video. As Carrie walks down the hall, humiliated, she stares in disgust at graffiti that someone has sprayed across a bank of lockers. She goes into the bathroom and smashes the mirror with her daring stare. She then makes the pieces levitate for a moment, until a girl shows up. Carrie goes to the library and looks to the web and numerous books about telekinesis, having enough knowledge about it. In class, Carrie reads a dark, well-composed poem. The teacher tries to give derogatory remarks about Carrie, but Tommy comes to her aid, indicating that the poem was awesome. Carrie looks at Tommy shyly and smiles. In another scene, Chris gets a meeting with Ms. Desjardins and Principal Grail with her arrogant lawyer father to try and overturn her suspension and revoked prom privileges. Chris tries to play the victim, but Ms. Desjardins plays better hardball than her, saying there was a video uploaded and that if Chris just proves it isn't on her phone, then she will get an apology and be allowed to go to prom. She is unable to show her phone. No prom for you, Chris. Sue and the prom committee work on turning the gymnasium into the prom. Chris storms in, angrily telling her friends that she is banned from prom, and asks why the girls didn't back her up. Sue says that she deserved the punishment. The next day, Sue watches Tommy play lacrosse. Sue comes up to Tommy and asks him to take Carrie to the prom. Tommy is shocked, saying he wants to take her, but Sue wants to do something to make up for the humiliation Carrie was put through. Tommy finds Carrie at lunch and shocks her by talking to her. Tommy asks her about prom and if she would like to go with him. Carrie doesn't believe him. However, she runs off and thinks it's a joke. Carrie is crying in the locker room and is discovered by Ms. Desjardins. Carrie explains that Tommy asked her out. Ms. Desjardins, realizing something is up, stays neutral, saying he is a cute boy. She goes to confront Sue and Tommy, thinking they are planning something. Sue says she is trying to do a good thing for Carrie. Later in the evening, Tommy drives over to Carrie's house and tells her he is not leaving till she says yes to prom. Fearful her mother will see them, Carrie says yes. Carrie goes to a dress shop. Chris and her friends see Carrie at the store, and Chris seethes in rage and is determined to plot revenge for having been banned from prom. At home, Margaret is reluctant for Carrie to go to prom, but Carrie tries to convince her that everything would be fine. Margaret is livid and tells her to go to her closet and repent before it is too late. Carrie then has an episode and makes everything in the living room jump up. She eventually levitates her mom and tells her that she is going to prom and no one is going to stop her. Meanwhile, Chris and her friends slit the throat of a pig to collect the blood to be poured on Carrie so she would be humiliated in front of the whole school. The next day, Sue is working on the prom decorations when she feels sick. She runs to the bathroom and throws up. Shock hits her face. She thinks she is pregnant. Chris and her friend break into the gymnasium and rig the pail with the pig blood. We see a montage of the students getting ready and dressed for prom. Carrie puts her dress on and applies some light makeup. She has fully transformed herself into the beautiful woman she was meant to be. As Tommy shows up, Margaret tells her daughter that she was conceived by what was basically marital rape and that she tried to kill her as a baby. Carrie, finally losing all her patience, force chokes her mom as she opens the closet and locks her mother in with her powers. Carrie goes outside to meet Tommy. Tommy welcomes her with a grand gesture of a limo. Carrie is nervous and shy because of what the other students will think, but Tommy kindly puts her at ease. As she enters the room, the other girl compliments Carrie on her dress. Carrie begins to loosen up. Tommy asks if she wants to dance, but they agree to wait till a slow one comes on. They had the floor and Carrie considered it as the most romantic gesture she had ever had. Chris and her friend have broken into the prom and sit in the rafters waiting. They hand off ballots to switch up to rig the prom king and queen election to ensure Carrie and Tommy are elected. Chris texts Sue while getting out of the shower about humiliating Carrie. Horror washes over Sue's face as she realizes that Chris has planned something horrifying to humiliate Carrie, and races to prom to try to stop her. Meanwhile, Sue gets to the building and sneaks in. The ballots are counted. Tommy and Carrie win. They both walk up to the podium and are crowned king and queen. Sue spots Chris and is unable to stop the incidents, as the blood is being spilled on Carrie. The whole class laughs as her embarrassing video is played on the screen. The pail hits Tommy on the back of his head and he dies instantly. Enraged, Carrie takes her revenge and uses her telekinesis to kill nearly every student and staff, but spares Desjardins. An electrical wire merges with leaking water, and a fire breaks out. As the school burns to the ground, Carrie walks away, leaving behind a trail of destruction. Chris and her friend attempt to drive away, but Carrie crashes the car, killing the friend. Chris attempts to run Carrie over, but Carrie lifts the car and throws it at a gas station. Chris's face goes through the windshield, killing her. Carrie tips over an electric power pole, exploding and setting the car on fire. Carrie arrives home and takes a bath and changes into her nightgown afterward. Carrie tearfully tells Margaret about the prank. Carrie and Margaret embrace and Margaret recounts Carrie's conception. After having shared a bed platonically with her husband, they yielded to temptation one night, and, after praying for strength, Carrie's father took Margaret, who enjoyed the experience. After the talk, Margaret stabs Carrie in the back with a knife. She declares that she must kill Carrie in order to prevent the devil from possessing her again and attacks Carrie, but Carrie kills her with many sharp tools. She becomes hysterical and makes stones rain from the sky to crush the house. When Sue arrives, a furious Carrie lifts her with her powers but senses that Sue is pregnant with a baby girl. Carrie protects Sue and throws her out of the house to safety as the house collapses and sinks, apparently killing Carrie as well. Sue visits Carrie and Margaret's grave, which has been vandalized to read, and places white roses by the headstone. As she leaves, the gravestone begins to break, and Carrie's enraged scream is heard. The end. If you enjoyed this movie, subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more. See you next time.